Hey friends, welcome to another episode of Sharing with Friends on behalf of Sharing Down Syndrome Arizona. We are so excited for this episode and this special guest and this amazing conversation, this very important conversation. Today we're joined by Dr. Dawn McClellan for, again, a very insightful, educational, important conversation about endocrine health and how it impacts children with Down syndrome. So Dr. McClellan, thank you so much for being with us. We
Thank you
appreciate your
for inviting
time.
me.
Yeah, so first off, let's talk a little bit about you. Now, you are a retired pediatric endocrinologist. You were in practice for more than 30 years. Tell us a little bit about your background.
So I was raised in a military family, and um, to go to school, to undergrad and to med school, I used the Army to help. Um, and so I, after graduating with my bachelor's degree, I went to the military medical school in Maryland, and then I went to residency in pediatrics in Colorado, and then the Army sent me to Germany as a general pediatrician for 2 years. And then I did my fellowship in pediatric endocrinology in the Washington, D.C. area. And then I practiced pediatric endocrinology at Fort Lewis in the state of Washington for 14 years. I retired in 2010 from the Army, and then I worked another 7 years at Phoenix Children's Hospital.
Awesome. Now, off camera, when we were having our discussion before the interview happened, you shared with us a really beautiful story about what, or should I say, who ultimately influenced you to pursue endocrinology. Can you talk to us a little? Can you share a little bit about
Sure,
that story?
sure. When I was 19, I left college and was sent by my church to Concepcion, Chile, as a missionary. That was a almost 2 year experience, um, and the last area that I served in, I met a family by the name of Benavides. Um, they were very poor and different in that they had a child with Down syndrome living with them. And we never saw anyone living with special needs children in Chile. This was the only family in the 2 years. I assume that the other families institutionalized their children, but the Benavides family, even though they were very poor, did not do that. And I had a wonderful experience teaching them. And one of the things that animated this family the most about what we were teaching them is at the end of one of the lessons we were teaching, for the first time in his life, Claudio spoke words. He simultaneously with the person that was closing the prayer, Claudio said his first words, which were, "In the name of Jesus Christ, amen." With that experience, the family became even more excited. I kept in touch for a number of years with this family. I actually helped their oldest son when he went on a mission about 5 years later. And it was kind of always in my mind. As I figured out during third and fourth year of medical school that I needed to be a pediatrician, that was my calling, so to speak. But as a pediatrician, I started thinking about subspecialties, and I remembered this experience with Claudio because it was so profound. And one of the reasons why I chose endocrinology is because I knew I would have more interaction with children with Down syndrome.
Yeah. That was such a special story when you were sharing that with us earlier, just about, the impact that Claudio had on you. And how old is he now? You mentioned that he's
53, 54. I got to see
wow.
the family. My wife and I traveled back to Chile in April of 2025. It was
Wow.
the first time that I'd been back to where I served on my mission. And we went to all the different places that I served, and I was able to rub shoulders with a lot of people that I hadn't seen in almost 45 years. And
Yeah.
one of the families was the Benavides
Yes.
family, and Claudio was 4 when we taught him, and if it was 45 years later, I guess he was not in his 50s, but he was almost 50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a beautiful story, because I always like to say nothing is by chance or by coincidence. So that's an amazing story that kind of sets the stage for really the rest of your career. So now that we're talking about endocrine health, for children with Down syndrome, endocrine health is very important. And we were talking about this earlier because, you know, kids with Down syndrome, they can be more likely to experience things like thyroid disorders, diabetes, other types of health issues. So, what, in your experience, what are the most common endocrine issues that you see or you have seen or you saw in children with Down syndrome?
The most important one early on is to make sure you know what their thyroid functioning
Mm-hmm.
is in these kids. Um, the newborn screen, that hill poke that they do with the kids and put blood on this filter paper, that is essential. So if anybody's doing a home delivery, you need to get into
Mm.
your pediatrician early on and get the newborn screening done. Um, if you're not doing a home delivery, the hospital should do it. But kids with Down syndrome can develop congenital hypothyroidism, and it's absolutely critical to have those studies done. And if there's any abnormalities, to have confirmatory testing done. My goal was always to get any child with congenital hypothyroidism on thyroid medication
Mm.
within the first 2 to 3 weeks of life.
Okay.
So that by far and away is the most important early thing. Um, Even if the newborn screening is normal, the recommendations are that kids should have annual thyroid function
Mm-hmm.
drawn. These are blood draws to make sure. Thyroid hormone is incredibly important um, for academic, intellectual functioning, for the development of the normal brain.
Mm-hmm.
And if thyroid hormone is needed and not given, there is a dramatic decrease in the potential from the standpoint of intellectual and mental functioning.
Mm-hmm.
So, newborn screen needs to be done. Rule out congenital hypothyroidism. Then annual screening after that. Kids with Down syndrome can develop autoimmune conditions, and the most common autoimmune condition in the world, where your own immune system is attacking um, the thyroid, the most common autoimmune condition is autoimmune
Mm-hmm.
hypothyroidism, where they
Mm.
need um, it's basically a pill. Um, we found out a long time ago that you can't put this pill into liquid form. Um, so the kids that need to take it at an early age, you end up getting figuring out what you can crush the pill in,
Yeah.
applesauce or something like that,
Yes.
um, or even just a little bit of formula.
Mm-hmm.
But thyroid hormone is the most, by far and away,
Okay.
the most common and the most important thing early on. There's a lot of other things that can develop if they're going to have autoimmune conditions. These are far less common, like diabetes, where
Mm-hmm.
you would need insulin. I did have a few patients with Down syndrome that also had diabetes. To be honest, that's something very challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Short stature, more common. Um, Obesity, more common. I didn't have any patients, teenagers with obesity that developed type 2 diabetes, so where you could manage it possibly with pills, but that is a risk. In the early parts of my career in the Army, I did put a couple of patients on growth hormone for their
Mm-hmm.
short stature.
Hmm.
Um, that was something that fell by the wayside. Growth hormone is a shot every day. There are risks of that. Um, and by the time I was practicing at Phoenix Children's, none of our patients with growth hormone, with Down syndrome, were on growth hormone therapy. Um, I think quality of life might suffer a little bit, um, and yet the risks, because there's a risk, very low, but there is a risk of growth hormone stimulating leukemia, and Down syndrome. People with Down syndrome are at a higher risk of leukemia. So starting with that 1 year old thyroid test, you also should get a complete blood count. That's not related to endocrine,
Yeah.
but it's still very important, uh, um, in the overall health. Um,
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great information. Sorry for the banging. We have some construction happening above us. So if you hear, pounding throughout this interview, that's definitely what that is. No, okay, so thyroid, number one, thyroid screening, thyroid testing. So let's say an annual testing.
uh-huh.
So let's say, though, if parents have maybe they didn't get that newborn thyroid screening, or if they're out of that annual, is it critical to start, though, that thyroid testing and screening at any age?
So let's say the newborn screening wasn't done,
Mm-hmm.
and you're listening to this, and you've got a 4-month-old or a 6-month-old,
Okay.
whatever age before one that they are, when you realize, hey, we need to do this, is when you need to do it. Okay.
Okay.
There are estimates. I gave you an estimate as we were talking before the interview, and I don't really recall the exact numbers, but suffice it to say, if a child of any background has congenital hypothyroidism and is not diagnosed by the time they're 9 to 12 months old, they will be permanently uh, mentally handicapped, educationally delayed, permanently and profoundly. So that's why I mentioned early on, I try to have the medicine started in the first 2 to 3 weeks of life.
Mm-hmm.
There are estimates, and how fast, I don't know that we can really say, but beyond a month of age, delaying thyroid medication when it's needed will dramatically decrease the IQ ultimately.
Yeah.
And so by the time you're 9 to 12 months, you're profoundly affected. If you're at 3 months and you find that they have it, there may be some effects, but that's hopefully early enough that it would be mild.
Okay.
So super important.
Yeah.
If the newborn screening wasn't done because they were born at home, or they were born in a place where for whatever reason it didn't get done, get the blood drawn. The newborn screen protocols are for newborns, and so if you're listening to this and you've got a 2-month-old, they need to have the blood drawn from their vein and not do a newborn screen.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, thank you for that. So, what signs should parents watch for or look out for that may point to an endocrine issue?
Okay. So first off, the reason newborn screening came out back in the 60s, the first two things were phenylketonuria and congenital hypothyroidism.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason they came out is because there wouldn't be any symptoms noticed until it was too late. to avoid major problems. Okay, so the newborns, you won't see any symptoms, or if you see them, it will be maybe they sleep longer or whatever. But let's say your child with Down syndrome is 2 or 3 years old.
Mm-hmm.
They might start getting constipated, they
Mm-hmm.
might be tired a lot, and they might be gaining weight. Because hypothyroidism in you and I, our symptoms of hypothyroidism would be tired, weight
Mm-hmm.
gain, and constipation. And in a
Mm-hmm.
1 or 2 year old, it would be kind of the same thing. The other thing, if they're having regular care, is that when you don't have adequate thyroid functioning, you don't grow as well.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so some people think that that's part of the etiology for short stature, is that a lot of the kids early on, there wasn't a recognition of needing to screen for thyroid stuff every year.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the common things that I would find in kids that were developing hypothyroidism, and these are not kids with Down syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
would be, I would plot their height and think, whoa, they're falling off the growth curve. So that's another reason why to have regular follow-up, because you want to plot their growth. But poor growth, constipation, tired a lot, feeling cold too, those are all symptoms of thyroid problems. And early on, the poor growth thing isn't going to be picked up any other way but having your plot done annually with your child's doctor.
Yeah, so when it comes to thyroid, which is really hormonal imbalances, so speaking of, and you just touch on this, growth, development, behavior. What about behavior?
So the thyroid can affect behavior, thought to be related to they're tired all the time, and so they're grouchy and all of that. I can't say that, well, thinking about that, I think I've had a few patients that were second decade of life, teenager, developing thyroid issues at the same time that they might be trying to go through puberty. And in that setting, sometimes you've got major league behavioral issues, possibly related for the boys with the testosterone.
So what advancements, in your experience, what advancements in care have you seen over the years for children with Down syndrome relating to endocrine care and health?
So I think maybe the biggest thing was establishing that there's a need for ongoing follow-up as far as testing thyroid functions. It was actually, I believe, an advancement to realize these aren't the patients that we should put on growth hormone. Makes them bigger. If there are behavioral issues, makes them harder to handle. But the risk wasn't worth the benefit and the potential benefit. I think I just read, as I was preparing for this, average height for a male with Down syndrome is 5'1", and a female is like 4'7", 4'8". 5'1", they can function in a normal kitchen. A young woman with Down syndrome, if she's on the shorter end of that, is going to need stools and stuff like that. But that's probably the only quality of life thing that growth hormone might have helped, and the potential downside of the growth hormone just really outweighed that. And I honestly don't know if it was as much a medical decision or the sophisticated families that kind of realized it doesn't matter how tall they're going to be. We're going to love them anyway, and a shot every day is not happening with a lot of kids that are struggling with just life with Down syndrome.
So just based on this conversation that we've had so far, and then what we do know and what we're learning, endocrine care is so very important as far as improving the quality of life, not only currently, but long term.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit more about that, how proper endocrine care really truly does improve your quality of life long term.
So back in the 50s and 60s, and I was born in 1960, so I'm only telling you what I've read,
Mm-hmm.
and I've never fact checked this. But back in the 50s, I think it was common to institutionalize a child with Down syndrome,
Right.
even here in the United States. Thrown in a big room with a bunch of kids, lack of stimulation from a variety of different things. My thoughts had always been perhaps they had hypothyroidism and they didn't know it, and so they became more profound. Then, I'm a teenager and young adult at the time that Chris Burke was becoming an actor with Down syndrome, and you wonder, well, did they just pick up his thyroid? And I don't even know if he has thyroid. Did they just pick it up early? What made it different so that he was higher functioning than somebody else? And I know for sure that if he had had hypothyroidism and it wasn't diagnosed, that he wouldn't have done what he did. So maybe he was just fortunate enough to not have those problems. But I'm absolutely convinced that we have higher functioning kids with Down syndrome than we used to, because we have found the thyroid problems early in life.
Now, let's talk a little bit about wellness, just overall wellness and nutrition. So, what role do those play? Do those things play, wellness, nutrition, when it comes to your endocrine health?
I think really important, good appetite, good balanced diet is what helps you grow.
Yeah.
And the kids with Down syndrome are already at risk, to be short. To be honest with you, if you have, I don't know what to tell somebody if they had a really, really picky eater child that also had Down syndrome. But you would want to work with professionals to try to maximize. If I remember being taught when I was a resident, that one of my staff people said, "Look, a kid's not going to die if he eats peanut butter sandwiches 3 times a day." So she wasn't a nutrition specialist, but she was a very practical pediatrician that was a mom too.
Yeah.
I've never had anybody tell me that, but I would want somebody to say, if your kid will only eat one thing, how can you let them maximize that and perhaps supplement with some gummy vitamins that the kids will eat or something like that. I think I think active lifestyle, getting them involved, the social stimulus that might come from a school environment or a preschool environment or things like that. All of that stimulus, I don't think can hurt. I think it can only help. And most of this is not endocrine, really. It's practicality of how do you raise a child and how do you give them the best chance that they can have to be functional.
Right.
And as you expose other children to them, hopefully cousins, and I think people will recognize the incredible amount of love that a child with Down syndrome has for the people around them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's really hard to describe. But I've experienced it over my entire career, that a child with Down syndrome I think they can see the need for somebody to come up and give somebody a hug. And so I would hope that people with young kids, and it's a phase that you go to, but I would hope that you can recognize that exposure, and instead of hiding,
Yeah,
exposure, trying to get their kids experiences with different
exactly.
people, and most people, not all, but most people will be really understanding,
Yeah,
and really, well, it'll expand. uh, Kids need,
yeah.
kids that are quote unquote normal
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
need, I think, that opportunity to
Yeah,
understand um, challenges and differences. So
absolutely.
so those are. I can't say that those things are more important than getting
Yeah.
your thyroid screen, but they're as important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you said that because, and we've talked about this before in different episodes, how it really truly creates a ripple effect. When it comes to even just that social interaction, when it comes to, yes, health and nutrition. But I love what you said about um, creating the opportunity and creating the environment for those who don't have Down syndrome to just see and appreciate life in a completely new way. And I think that's what Sharing Down Syndrome Arizona does so beautifully is the organization. We create opportunities for families to come together and the general public to come together through different events that we have throughout the year. And it's such a beautiful thing. We just had our walk last month, our glow walk. Were you there or no? No?
No,
Okay. Okay, no worries.
I've seen it.
We won't hold it against you.
I've seen it, and there's so many times. The same day there was a type 1
Okay.
diabetes
Okay.
walk, and I have a niece with type 1 diabetes who was
Okay.
diagnosed while I was in Mexico as a missionary
Yeah.
with my wife, and I already had a commitment with my son and
Okay.
son
Yeah,
and
no worries.
daughter-in-law, and I couldn't go to either one of them.
Yeah, no worries. But my point is, last month for our walk, you see it, you feel it. The families come together. There's this connection, um, and there's just this love. There's this love. There's this appreciation, and so yeah, thank you for saying that, and just
I've
and
been slobbered on more than once by a young kid with Down syndrome. They have
yeah,
they
yeah,
have big
yeah.
tongues,
Uh-huh.
and, and it's like, whoa, okay,
Aw.
that's great. I
Yeah,
love you
yeah,
too.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, thank you for
So
saying that, doctor. Um, so, let's talk a little bit because I feel like we're kind of steering into just, the conversation of being encouraging at the same time. What encouragement would you give to families raising children with Down syndrome?
I believe, I believe that they were blessed by God to receive this child in their lives. It will be the biggest challenge that you have, but I think it has the potential to bring the greatest joy. And in my faith, I believe that those kids with Down syndrome that come to this earth um, already have their place with God. And so, what can we learn from them that will help bring us closer to God?
That's so beautiful. Yeah. And yes, in my faith too. Um, truly gifts from God. I believe God is a God of intention and God is a God of purpose. And so every life matters and every life has a purpose. And so, in my experience with Sharing Down Syndrome Arizona, just having the gift of interacting and learning and getting to know these beautiful families and children and adults with Down syndrome has been one of the very biggest blessings that I have encountered. Yeah. So, Dr. McClellan, thank you so much for just your wealth of knowledge and education during this time, during this super meaningful conversation. So, we're going to end it here. Do you have any final tips, any final advice for parents when it comes to endocrine health and wellness?
I think be an advocate. Make sure that the recommendations are followed. Because some people say, oh, he or she's really hard to get the blood from. We don't need to do it, So be the advocate. Make sure the thyroid function testing and the complete blood count are drawn. And then other than that, I would say be positive, be involved. Let Sharing Down Syndrome help you, and let your village, whatever that village looks like, let your village, your family, your neighbors, let your village help you. Because I think it's too hard to do alone. And it would be selfish to not share your child with other people.
Those are great final tips and final advice. Thank you so much, because it really does truly take a village. We know that, we live that. So thank you so much for everything, for being here, for your time, for just sharing your expertise and your knowledge, and most of all, Dr. McClellan, for sharing your heart. You shared your heart in such a beautiful way, and although you're retired, we know that you've shared your heart with the community for many years. And so, yeah, thank you just so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And friends, thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of Sharing with Friends. Make sure you like and you subscribe. We can't wait to share another meaningful conversation with you on the next episode of Sharing with Friends on behalf of Sharing Down Syndrome Arizona. We'll see you later.